Hello and welcome to Falcon Blues TV. I'm Callum Davis here with your match preview for this weekend's game where Everton are going to be hosting Burnley. It's a 5:30 kickoff on Saturday the 13th of March and we're going to be showing on Sky Sports. Before we get into the video, if you wouldn't mind going down, liking, subscribing, we'd really appreciate it. And without further ado, let's get into the video. So last time out we were unfortunately beaten 2-0 by Chelsea. We were outfought, outclassed, just outplayed in every position on the pitch. They're just a good side, a good footballing team, and they'll finish high up in the table, probably second or third. So there's no shame in getting beat by a side like that. Heads might be down a little bit after a result like that, but I would say that in this situation, Chelsea up winning was always kind of a foregone conclusion in the form that they'd been in. And obviously that might seem like a bad mentality, but it's from these kind of games where you need to learn stuff, and obviously Ancelotti still hasn't had time to get the kind of players in that Chelsea had. If you looked at their bench compared to ours, they had millions and millions and millions of pounds, and we basically had an under-23s bench. So it's a disappointing result, but it's how we reply in this game and the fixtures following them. Burnley, on the other hand, come off the back of quite a spirited draw against Arsenal. The goal they scored was a bit dubious in the way that it went in off Chris Wood's hip, but they all count and they defended well to retain that point. So it's going to be a deceptively tough game, I think. They're a hard-working side, and I thought we were kind of outfought throughout the majority of the Chelsea game, which is probably what disappoints me most about that game. The fact that they kind of wanted it more than we did. In the midfield especially, they kind of bullied us a little bit, Kovacic and Jorginho. And until Davis came on, we didn't really kick them back. So I'm hoping that we'll see more fight in them. Burnley obviously sit 15th at the moment, and while that might look not too bad, they have played one more game than Newcastle and Brighton, who are just the couple places below them. So they need to be careful that they don't get sucked back into a relegation battle. They've accumulated 4 points from their last 5 games, which isn't awful, I suppose, but you'll want to be picking up more to really pull yourself out of this relegation battle that they are really like teasing with. They have been all season, really, because I thought at one point they were absolutely gone down, no saving them, and I think they've pulled themselves back quite well. It's always a worry, I think, though, with a team like Fulham, who have the potential to pull out big results, as they have done against Liverpool not too long ago. And they're playing good football, so I'd be quite worried if I was Burnley, and I'd see coming to Goodison as a chance to pick up points given our form. They've already won on Merseyside this season. They were the first to start Liverpool's Anfield collapse. They broke that record, and at the time it was special. From what's happened since, it's become a little bit less special, but they were still the first to do it. So I've got to tip my hat to them, because they did what every Evertonian wanted any team to do, and then we went and did it as well. So Everton's home form, obviously, as I mentioned, hasn't been great, but their away form, surprisingly, has been quite impressive for a relegation side. We've lost 3 of our last 5 home games, whereas they've won 3 of their last 5 away games. So it doesn't really bode too well. But then if you look at their goal scoring records compared to our recent defensive strengths, I'd say they've, I think it was, failed to score in 14 league matches this season, which is basically 50%, I think I read somewhere. And if you combine that with the fact that we've kept 3 clean sheets in our last 5, conceding 5 in our last 5, it does bode quite well. They're not a high scoring team, but they only really need 1 goal to beat you. Last time they beat us, 2017, they only beat us by 1-0. We were awful that day, and I always feel like when we do play them at Goodison, we are awful. So maybe hopefully we can change the pattern this time. Obviously it's going to be difficult. We've got quite a lot of major absentees. The big one being Decore, who wasn't able to feature at all in our last game. I read somewhere it could be a fractured foot, which would, I've seen somewhere, potentially 8 weeks. It could be really, really damaging for Everton's running, because he's such an important player for us with the pace and the power that he brings to our side. There's no one really in our midfield ranks who even comes close to the kind of presence that he brings to our midfield. Obviously Davis did well deputising for Allen, but they're similar sized players. No one is like Doucouré in the fact that he's huge, fast and has the stamina. He's going to be such a big loss for us. James is another one who missed the last 3 games through this minor injury which keeps carrying over. And Everton did a video on their YouTube where they showed the whole training session, and Everton Twitter got to it, nitpicking it. Couldn't find James in any of them, so he is probably unlikely to play again. Mina, on the other hand, was seen training. He probably won't be fit for this game, which is a shame because he's a big unit, and the way that they play, it would have helped to kind of negate that. But the fact that he's coming back, it's a promising sign that he's back in training. Coleman was another one who was there. I'd like to think he'll start on the weekend, but I've said this the past 2 weeks and he hasn't done. So all we can do is hope. Davis is another one who had the minor injury. He came off the bench against Chelsea, so you'd assume he probably will be fit enough to start if Ancelotti requires him to. Burnley, on the other hand, Charlie Taylor, their starting left-back, limped off against Arsenal, and Jack Cork, who normally starts in the centre of their midfield, wasn't fit enough to even feature. I think it was a small hamstring complication I read somewhere. So with them two out, they're going to have to put in the second choice, shuffle it about. It could benefit us, it could kind of unbalance a team that they like to play the same team. I've noticed a bit of a pattern. They've got Brady, Robbie Brady and Goodmanson coming back, which gives them a little bit more options out wide. And of course, Ashley Barnes is completely not fit. He's been out for a little while now. So for Everton's team, there's two sides that I'm thinking of, and there's one that I would play, and there's one that I think Ancelotti's going to play. I think Ancelotti will probably stick with the 4-4-2. Pickford will obviously start in goal. Olsen's definitely not going to start after what's happened in the week with his family, and it's just horrible news, and obviously our thoughts go out to him and his family. Some horrible people out there. But anyway, Pickford will most likely start in goal, and I think he'll start Godfrey at left back, Holgate Keane in the middle, and Coleman at right back, which would mean that Dean will play on the left-hand side of midfield. And I think that kind of plays into Burnley's strengths in the fact that we'll just try and get it wide to Dean, whip balls in, and they'll just eat them up all day. They've got 2 monster centre-backs who just head through a brick wall. I just don't think that would benefit us. I think if we play Dean and Coleman as our fullbacks and pushed onto them, it would help us offensively, while it would also relieve pressure on Pickford, because if we sit back with this defence, Pickford's not great coming out for crosses at the best of times. So I feel like sitting back will just invite pressure onto him. Unnecessary pressure as well, because if we push up, they're big target men. They won't have anywhere to go with it. I would play a 3-man midfield because it allows us to have the front three just attacking their back four. I'd probably play Alan. Gomez most likely will play. I think Sigurdsson was another one who wasn't seen in the training video, so he could be out. And then Davis hopefully will be fit. Front three, I would then play Richarlison, Calvert-Lewin, and if James isn't fit, Josh King. I'd like to see him given a run out. Whenever he comes off the bench, he looks really lively, I think. He seems quite fast, quite direct, something which we kind of lack, really. But probably won't play because Ancelotti seems to really not favour him. Iwobi, who I thought was really poor against Chelsea, he just didn't really offer. That right hand side was the undoing of us in the end, because both the goals came from that side. He'll most likely play, or Bernard in the 4-4-2, I think, and then Calvert-Lewin and Richarlison will start up front. I think the 4-3-3 will benefit us more, but I'm not an Italian manager with multiple Champions League titles in every country I've been to, so I'll just let Ancelotti pick his system and I'll just back it because he knows a lot more than I do. Burnley, on the other hand, pretty easy to predict. It's the 4-4-2. It's classic Burnley. Pope will be in goal, and then you'll have me and Tarkowski through the middle. Pretty steely back three then. And then Eric Peters would be there instead of the injured Taylor, and Lowton at right back rather. Because of Jack Cork's injury in the last game, they had to put Brownhill into centre mid and Goodmanson came in. We'll probably see that again with Westwood and McNeil on the left midfield and left centre mid, and then obviously the front two, Vidra and Wood, just two absolute units. So we're going to cause havoc for our centre backs, Keane, and whether it be Godfrey or Holgate who plays, it's going to be a tough task for them. I think Keane knows what he's dealing with. He used to play for Burnley, so I'm sure he had to do loads of training where he was playing against absolute monsters. But I don't think Holgate is quite suited to that kind of play. He's not quite as rugged as Keane, and I would rather see Godfrey starting centre back, which is another reason why I'd play Dean and Coleman at fullbacks, because that would allow Godfrey to start centre back and Holgate probably drop to the bench. Even though he's been good the past few weeks, I think he's been a bit ropey, and obviously a lot of people have had problems with how his attitude has looked. So it'll be an interesting one. So what would it mean? Now our next three games are absolutely must-win games in my opinion. We've got Burnley this weekend, then we play Brighton and Palace. If we were to win all three of those games, or get 7 points maybe, it'd put us right back in the talk for Champions League again. And I'm not saying that we're going to get it, or we should aim. We should always just be aiming for it though, because it's there for the taking this season. Leicester seem to be dropping off a little bit, and that fourth spot is definitely there for the taking. As I said, I think Chelsea will probably end up third. They seem pretty unstoppable at the moment. But a win for us would see us leapfrog West Ham back into 5th place. We'd go a point behind Chelsea. Now West Ham have United this weekend, which is obviously a very tough game, and if they were to lose that, we'd be obviously ahead of them and we'd be level on games. So I think this game is so important to wipe the Chelsea game just clean from our memory. We'll just forget about it, and because it happens against good sides like that. You're not always going to beat good sides like that, especially when you've not had the years of investment that Chelsea have and the years of these huge big name managers. We've had a manager carousel, and we finally got our man. He needs another year or two, I'd say, before we can really expect to compete with those sort of sides every single time we play them all season round. Burnley, on the other hand, they need a win to move away from relegation, as I've said, and it's such a competitive relegation battle this season that every point will be important. I'm sure they'd be happy to come to Goodison and walk away with just a point. So I think it's really important that we don't sit back, because they'll just sit back and watch us. They'll be happy to sit back and just take a point from us, and we need to really push for a win in this game. I think it's so important for our hopes of any kind of Europe. So what will my prediction be for this game? If we go attacking, which I'm going to be optimistic and say that he will push forward a little bit more, I think my prediction will be 3-1. I can't really see us keeping a clean sheet. I think they'll just batter us too much. But if he goes defensive, it could finish 0-0, 1-0 to either side. It's just whoever gets the luck of the bounce. But I don't want to put it in luck's hand. I want us to take it by the scruff of the neck and just convincingly win this game. It would do us the world of good. So anyway, let us know in the comments down below what your predictions be, what you think the game's going to go like. And yeah, all we can hope for is another win. Thank you for watching. Up the Toffees.